Riga is one of those cities where you can feel history not just in its streets, but in the way people move through them. And no, I'm not just talking about tourists blocking your way while taking selfies with Art Nouveau balconies. I'm talking about Riga's buses, trolleybuses, and trams, three modes of transport that have been carrying this city's story for over a century. But here is the kicker. While almost every other European capital has a metro, Riga never built one. But why? That's where politics, Soviet ambitions, and a fair bit of local resistance all collide. So let's investigate the mystery of Riga's missing metro. And while we are at it, uncover how Riga's surface transport became the true backbone of the city. To understand why Riga's transport looks the way it does, we need to roll back the clock. In the late 19th century, Riga was part of the Russian Empire, and like many industrial cities, it had a problem. Workers needed to get to factories, but walking wasn't cutting it anymore. Enter the horse-drawn trams of 1882. Yes, Riga's first organized public transportation involved actual horses pulling wagons along tracks. By 1893, electric trams replaced them, and Riga suddenly became one of the first cities in the Russian Empire to electrify its trams. Talk about forward thinking. Fast forward to today. Riga's tram system is over 140 years old and still running. Currently, it has 8 tram lines covering about 100 kilometers of tracks. Every year, it carries around 30 million passengers. That's more than the population of Latvia multiplied 15 times. The trams are iconic. The Soviet-era Tatra T3S, with their squeaky brakes and boxy designs, once dominated the streets. But recently, Riga upgraded with new Skoda trams, low floor, air-conditioned, and actually pleasant to ride, unlike their grandfathers that rattled like they were about to fall apart. The tram network focuses heavily on connecting the suburbs with the city center. And here is the cool thing, many lines pass straight through the old town, giving commuters daily front-row views of medieval churches and gilt houses. Of course, this all means that the tracks and cobblestones sometimes don't get along. Cue the clunk 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 soundtrack of Riga's daily commute. Maintenance is a constant struggle. Many tracks date back to 1970s, and Riga's winter weather, freeze, thaw, repeat, isn't kind to steel rails embedded in stones. On top of that, the city struggles with funding, since Latvia isn't exactly swimming in money for massive infrastructure projects. EU funding has been a lifesaver. In the past decade, millions of euros from Brussels have helped Riga modernize tram lines and buy those shiny new Skodas. Or Škodas, as they say. If trams are the city's bones, trolleybuses are its muscles. Riga introduced trolleybuses in 1947, right after the World War II. Why? Because the Soviets loved trolleybuses. They were cheaper to build than trams, didn't need tracks, and symbolized modernity, at least in the 1950s. Today, Riga has 19 trolleybus lines, with total length of about 270 kilometers of overhead wires zigzagging above the streets. They carry more than 35 million passengers annually, even more than the trams. The trolleybuses are electric, which makes them relatively eco-friendly, but don't let that fool you. The Soviet-era fleet was notorious for its slow pace. People joked that trolleybuses were like moving benches with doors. You'd sit, wait, and maybe arrive eventually. But Riga has invested in new models with partial battery operation, which means they can sometimes run without wires. That helps solve one big problem, those ugly spaghetti wires cluttering the street sky. Maintenance costs are high because the system is so widespread, and Riga has one of the densest trolleybus networks in Europe. Also, competition from cars is fierce. In post-Soviet Latvia, owning a car became a symbol of freedom, and trolleybuses had to fight against the perception of being old-fashioned. The city has started electrifying more buses, expanding lanes for trolleybuses, and experimenting with hybrid trolleybuses that can go wire-free in some parts of the city. Buses are the glue of Riga's transport system. They are flexible, go where trams and trolleybuses can't, and they cover the widest area of all three modes. Riga's buses date back to 1925, when the first routes connected new suburban neighborhoods to the city center. Today, Riga has over 50 bus routes covering more than 800 kilometers of roads. Together, they move about 60 million passengers annually, nearly half of Riga's public transport ridership. The Soviet years were rough. Riga's buses were often crowded, unreliable, and not exactly clean. People still remember the infamous Icarus 280 articulated buses, those long accordion-style buses that belched back smoke and sounded like a jet engine about to fail, but they moved masses of people. In the modern era, Riga has made huge progress. The fleet now includes low-emission and even fully electric buses. The city also upgraded bus stops with digital screens showing arrival times, although in winter, those screens sometimes freeze before the buses do. Riga's bus network overlaps a lot with trams and trolleybuses, which sometimes leads to inefficiency. Also, buses get stuck in traffic, and Riga's traffic is no joke. According to TomTom's traffic index, Riga consistently ranks among Europe's most congested cities, with drivers spending an average of 120 hours a year stuck in traffic. And what is the solution? More dedicated bus lanes and better integration with trams and trolleybuses. Plus, investment in electric buses is helping Riga cut emissions. And now for the big question, why doesn't Riga have a metro? During the Soviet era, Moscow wanted every major republic capital to have a subway. Riga was no exception. In the 1970s, plans were drawn up for a 3-line metro system, with the first line connecting to the historic center to the Soviet-built housing districts. Construction was set to begin in the late 1980s. But then something unexpected happened. Massive public protests. Latvians feared the metro project would flood Riga with more Russian-speaking workers, changing the city's demographics even further. At the time, Latvians were already on the verge of becoming a minority in their own capital. Combine that with the environmental concerns. Tunneling under the old town's fragile foundations sounded like a disaster waiting to happen, and the project was stopped in 1988. After independence in 1991, the idea was revisited, but costs killed it. Building a metro today would cost billions, and Riga's population is only about 600,000, compared to cities like London or Paris that's tiny. So Riga decided to stick with what it already had: trams, trolleybuses, and buses. The 1990s were a rough time. Funding collapsed, vehicles aged, and public transport was often the last priority. But in the 2000s, EU membership changed everything. Suddenly, Riga could tap into EU structural funds for transport modernization. That's why you now see new trams, hybrid trolleybuses, and cleaner buses. Today, Riga's Public Transport Authority oversees the whole system. It carries around 140 million passengers annually across trams, trolleybuses, and buses combined. For a city of 600,000, it's impressive. But the real challenge? Convincing people to ditch cars. Car ownership has skyrocketed since independence, with about 400 cars per 1,000 residents, higher than many Western European capitals. And there are some challenges. Riga relies heavily on EU money. Without it, modernization would stall. Cars choke the city, making buses and trolleybuses less reliable. And Riga's population has actually shrunk since independence, from almost 900,000 in 1990 to about 600,000 today. That means fewer passengers, but the same expensive infrastructure. Currently, 4 solutions are being discussed. 1. Expanding dedicated lanes for buses and trolleybuses. 2. Further modernization of the tram network with plans to extend lines to growing suburbs. 3. Encouraging cycling and walking to reduce car use. And 4. Exploring autonomous electric shuttles as a futuristic add-on to the existing system. So Riga doesn't have a metro. Instead, it relies on its trio of buses, trolleybuses, and trams, a combination that has survived wars, occupations, independence, and EU integration. Sure, they squeak, rattle, and occasionally break down in the snow, but they are also a part of what makes Riga unique. Riga's public transport is a rolling museum of Soviet engineering, European modernization, and Latvian resilience. And honestly, who needs a metro when your daily commute comes with views of medieval spires, Art Nouveau palaces, and the occasional seagull from the Daugava River stealing someone's sandwich at a tram stop?